Hi, this is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University, and this is a Muscogee County School District podcast, The Missouri Compromise of 1820. Okay, now let's take a really careful look at this map of the United States in the 1820s. You'll notice that there are some states that are colored green and some states that are colored light red. The green states are those areas where slavery was not legal, and the light red states are those states where slavery was practiced and was legal. But notice on this map that there's a lot of areas where there's not even states formed yet. These are called the Western Territories. And states were beginning to form in those areas, and there was a big question over whether or not those new states should be allowed to be slave states. Here's the reason why this idea of new states created so much controversy back in 1820. You see, when a new state gets created and admitted into the United States, that state gets to send 2 senators and a number of congressmen to Washington, D.C. to vote on the laws for the entire country. So if a state came into the United States that was an anti-slavery state, likely their senators and their congressmen would vote against slave initiatives at the national level. On the other hand, if a slave state was created, a state where slavery was allowed, their senators and congressmen would likely vote for measures that advocated slavery in the United States. So the Missouri Compromise was designed to keep a balance. So in 1820, Missouri applied for statehood. And Missouri was allowed to come into the Union, to be admitted to the Union as a slave state. But look up here, Maine was also entered into the Union around 1820. And Maine came in as a free state. So you had a perfect balance of senators and congressmen, pro-slavery and anti-slavery, being sent from Maine and Missouri. But the real question would be this: what about the new territories? What about the states that would be created in those new territories? Should those states be allowed to have slavery in them or not? Well, the compromise basically said this. They drew a line right below Missouri. And they said any state that comes into the Union below this line may be permitted to have slaves in it. But all the states that will come in above this line may not be allowed to have slaves or slavery practiced in them. Now, if you look at the map, the Missouri Compromise seems to favor the anti-slavery or the abolitionist sentiment in the United States at the time, because there's a lot more territory north of the Missouri Compromise line than there is south. However, if we look at it carefully, we see that there's a lot of territory here called New Spain that was actually part of Mexico, not part of the United States. And we felt that maybe that would not be part of this controversy until the 1830s and 1840s, when Americans started going into that territory, calling it Texas, and we started thinking about maybe that should be part of the United States. Matter of fact, we're going to fight a war called the Mexican War in the 1840s, which will result in that territory now coming into the United States, which will open up a whole lot more territory where slave states would be permitted. So when the Mexican War broke out, those who were against slavery were largely against fighting over Mexico and very much against annexing the area of Texas as part of the United States, because they were concerned that Texas would be allowed to have slaves in it. The Missouri Compromise would eventually be repealed in the 1850s by the Kansas and Nebraska Act. And that's a story that we'll tell later in another podcast. This has been another Muscogee County School District podcast, the Missouri Compromise of 1820. My name is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University.